Coming up, it is a special all-women's edition of Inside Indiana Business. We begin with Molina Kennedy. Her career has spanned decades, from politics, a partner in a law firm, to moving up the ranks at Cummins, where she's currently a vice president. She shares more on what Cummins is doing to empower women around the world. Plus, launch Terre Haute, a membership-based collaborative co-working and business incubator space. That's where entrepreneurs and business organizations can meet, mingle, and create. Executive Director Shelley Klingerman shares what is fueling success while helping root and grow business within the local community. And in celebration of March being Women's History Month, in our Trendiana segment, Yelp's Brittany Smith will tell us about 5 fun ways to celebrate women throughout the month, from supporting a women-owned business to volunteering with a women-focused nonprofit, and much more. We'll have details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to this special edition of Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. We have something special planned for you this week. I'm going to open the show as usual, but then we'll have female guest hosts for each of our additional segments for this all-women's edition of our show. We begin with Molina Kennedy. She grew up in Indiana, went to IU, was a partner at the law firm of what was Baker & Daniels, served as Director of Economic Development and Deputy Mayor for Indianapolis Mayor Bart Peterson, and a lot more. She's moved up the ranks at Cummins now and currently serves as Vice President, Product Compliance and Regulatory Affairs. She takes pride in some of the key women's initiatives that Cummins is doing to empower women in the male-dominated world of manufacturing. And she joins us here off the top of the show with more. Molina, it's always great to see you.
Thank you, Gary. Great to be here.
We're going to talk about your journey, but I want to talk about Cummins because a lot of companies talk about diversity and empowering women, but there are a lot of examples where this big company, Cummins, is empowering women in Indiana, in the U.S., and around the globe.
Thank you. I love working at Cummins for lots of reasons, but the inclusion and diversity commitment is great. And it starts with our leadership. Our CEO, Tom Linebarger, is very committed to making sure that women have a voice and a place of leadership in Cummins. In fact, our top leadership in Cummins is represented by approximately 40% are women. Our board of directors has 3 women, and we have a number of initiatives and other things that are more than just talk. They really contribute to inclusion and diversity, particularly women.
You announced not long ago a huge initiative, Cummins Powers Women, which is focused on women and girls, and I believe it's the largest community effort Cummins has ever undertaken.
It's really exciting, and it's global. As a global company, we're trying to make a difference in the lives of women and girls all over the world. We've invested over $11 million in a number of programs that are evidence-based to help women achieve success in a variety of conditions. Also advocate for legislation and government changes and policy changes that help women and girls all over the world. And it's something that's just really exciting. And again, our CEO is committed. Our head of our foundation, Mary Chandler, has been working hard on it, and it's achieving great results in a shorter period of time. You
have achieved success in the political world and certainly now in the male-dominated world of manufacturing. Talk about that journey, the challenges, the opportunities, how things maybe have changed over the course of your career.
Well, I think over time, I just hit the big 50 this summer, so I've seen things progress over the years in terms of how women are doing, and I think we've seen a lot of positives, but there's still a long way to go. It wasn't that long ago when I was running for office and people would ask me, what are you going to do with your kids? Probably most men don't get that question. But then I'm at a place like Cummins where I feel I've had the opportunity to grow and contribute and lead. And so I've seen a lot of positive progress, but I think most people would say that there's still opportunity for improvement.
What, in your view, to continue that improvement or to get to where things need to be, what needs to happen? Are there things that can be done? You mentioned the initiatives at Cummins. Can other companies, organizations do things to help the process?
I think so. I think awareness, so things like the Indiana Conference of Women, bringing awareness to the table and talking about how we can promote women and work together, but also being able to see women in leadership roles is really important. So seeing companies like Cummins who have a lot of women in leadership roles and seeing other companies do that as well is really important for people to understand that women have a lot to contribute. We're more than 51% of the society. And so those are some of the things that I think can make a difference.
Yeah, a lot in manufacturing and some other kind of non-traditional fields, if you will, but STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So important. A lot of efforts to get more women and young girls engaged at a young age in STEM-related fields.
That's right, and that's part of the focus of the Cummins Powers Women Initiative, as well as other things that we're doing as a company.
You mentioned this earlier, but you mentioned about 40% of Cummins leadership team women, 1 in 3 employees women. Is a big part of it doing, not just saying, but doing and executing on some of these initiatives to get women to see, hey, I can do that, I can be part of that.
No question, and so it's easy to say these words about diversity and inclusion, but you have to follow it up with action. And I think we would say even at Cummins, we still have more work to do, but progress has been made, and that's important so that it isn't just words, it's actions as well.
Molina Kennedy from Cummins, great perspective. Great to see you as always. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Gary. I'm Jean Witowich, president of Cambridge Capital Management Corporation. This week, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic, pointing to the over 118,000 cases of the coronavirus illness in more than 110 countries and territories around the world. More cases have been confirmed in Indiana, while many strive to navigate all the information and still conduct business as usual. What can companies do to adapt to the situation? I'm pleased to welcome CVC Communications CEO Marilyn Moran-Townsend, who has a list of ways you can vaccinate your business in the face of economic disruption from COVID-19. Marilyn, welcome.
Thank you, Jean.
So I understand that you were perhaps ahead of the curve in bringing this issue to the attention of businesses.
True, it was on our radar because we've been there before. So I'm going to take you back 20 years to September the 13th. We were in New York City to produce a major nationwide training event 2 days after 9/11.
Oh my.
Of course, it got canceled.
Right.
As did all of the meetings in the subsequent months, because no company wanted to put their employees on airplanes. Now, I don't know if it was divine intervention or good planning, but we had previously invested just a few months earlier in what was at the time a brand new technology, the webinar. So we were able to move all of our customers to hold web meetings when they previously had planned to hold those meetings face to face. So over this 20-year period of time, we've helped a lot of companies figure out how do you manage a remote workforce when it's really necessary. And economic disruption is making it necessary.
Absolutely, and companies have certainly gotten more comfortable with that kind of communication and that kind of interaction with their employees and vendors and others. Now, I also understand that you may have put together some interesting ways from an economic standpoint that companies consider perhaps vaccinating their businesses against this current outbreak.
Right. When we noticed that this was coming, and about a month ago, I was in an economic development meeting when I asked the question, what are we doing to economically vaccinate, particularly the most fragile of businesses, startups? And that really caused us to put this plan into high gear, which includes a 10-point plan with such things as how do you train managers to work with a remote workforce when they have previously only worked face-to-face. So for example, one of the tips is that you get managers to focus on the outcomes, and they make sure that they have set enough back-timed milestones so that the project will work properly. You make sure everyone understands their roles and responsibilities and that everyone knows that they are valued wherever they are doing their work. If you have some work that you can move it to, for example, a factory that isn't under quarantine, and many other things.
Absolutely, and we're going to see, many companies have pandemic plans. They're now testing those and putting those into motion in ways that perhaps can provide flexibility as well.
Yes. So it's important that we do that we make sure that our various employers understand how they can make good, productive use of this time. As an example,
Marilyn, Thank you. I know there are so many more ways
So
that
many
we can
more.
help.
And we just have to have people look them up. We have a place
Absolutely.
to do that. Businessstorytellers.com, as well as Inside Edge, is sharing the 10-point plan. It's totally free for all businesses.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Next, for Beverly Miller, it all began 32 years ago with a phone, a fax machine, and drive to succeed. Why she chose the business of signs and her advice to other women who want to break through in male-dominated industries. When we come back.
It's time to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegion, pioneering safety. You're watching a special all-women's edition of Inside Indiana Business. I'm guest host Marilyn Flowers, TechPoint Senior Director of Talent Programs. More than 3 decades ago, with less than $2,000 in seed money, no business plan or equipment besides a telephone and a fax machine, Beverly Miller founded A Sign by Design. It was a time and in an industry when there were few women leaders in business. And now, the signs created in their Zionsville-based company can be seen all over not only Indiana, but across the country. It's so great to have such a pioneering woman with us today. Welcome, Beverly.
Thank you.
Bet. So I want to start at the beginning, when you started your company 32 years ago as a struggling single mom. What made you think at that point, signage, that's my jam?
Well, I was going to school studying to be an accountant, and I was interning with a sign company, and I was given the opportunity to sell signs. So the first signs I went out and sold were men and women's restroom signs. I was so proud of myself for doing that. But then it got to the point where I started to sell to developers, big shopping center owners, and found out that I had a passion to do this type of work in a man's field.
So your company is a full-service commercial sign company that takes on all aspects of getting a sign installed, including the permitting, design, manufacturing, and installation. Is it unusual to have a company that does all of those components?
No, it's not unusual for a commercial sign company to have that, because what we do is we offer our clients a avenue where they don't have to go shop for different aspects of the signage. So we have people on staff that does nothing but research the permit and the ordinances for the cities. We have people on staff that just do the design work. We have a full service and installation with cranes and all that. Maybe in a way we are a little bit different. That makes us more special than some of the other companies who might just do fabrication or just do installation. We do it all.
Fantastic. One of the things I really enjoyed reading about was your environmentally responsible approach to the work. And as somebody who works in tech, I get excited about following the technological advancements of different industries. So what do you think is next in the signage industry when it comes to that?
Well, the big thing in the last 10 years was LEDs, and people are still doing LEDs. They're doing fiber optics. We have a lot of fiber optic, type of signage, and but basically that's where they're going. I'd like to see them come up with more materials, because people believe that signages are made, they're basically only made from metals, woods, and plastics. And so it'd be nice to see recirculated, take plastic and reinvent the plastic, and we start fabricating from that type of material.
Sure.
Yes.
Exciting things ahead.
But before, it was just nothing but fluorescence or neon. And everybody loved neon, but neon was high voltage, and it was unsafe, and it burned buildings down. So when they came out and said all LEDs, it was fabulous. The customers love it. It's low voltage, and it's less energy. So it was a win-win for everyone.
Fantastic. Well, you certainly are an accomplished woman, and I can imagine there are a lot of people who have learned from you during their career. What advice do you have for young women, particularly who are going into a field where there are not a lot of other women leaders to learn from?
Well, I would believe that you have to have a passion for what you want to do. You can't just go in and say, I want to do this. You have to have a passion. Then you have to work very hard and very smart, and never give up. Don't give up. And I think to be a success is your honesty and your integrity. It will follow you through.
Great advice. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Next, there's a place in Vigo County where entrepreneurs and business groups can mix, mingle, and create. Guest host, founder of Power Body Language, Lisa Mitchell, chats with Launch Terre Haute Executive Director, Shelley Klingerman, about its mission, how it's helping launch careers, and what's next.
I'm guest host Lisa Mitchell, communications expert and founder of Power Body Language. Since 2015, Launch Terre Haute has helped grow the city's entrepreneurial ecosystem. The membership-based collaborative co-working and business incubator space is open to freelance workers, independent contractors, entrepreneurs, startups, local companies, and remote companies. Launch Terre Haute is where entrepreneurs and business organizations can meet, mingle, and create. With more on its mission is Executive Director Shelley Klingerman.
Hi.
Shelley, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, Indianapolis gets a lot of the spotlight when it comes to entrepreneurial growth. There's a lot of great innovation happening in Terre Haute and the surrounding areas, due in large part to the work that you're doing there at Launch Terre Haute. Can you tell us about some of the current initiatives that are helping to propel the growth there?
Yeah, actually our region has gone through a planning phase and we have all come together. We've done a needs assessment. We've listened to the community to see what it is they want. And we brought all of that back in. We're sharing that throughout the community, throughout the region. And what that's doing is it's starting to fill voids in our market for entrepreneurs to go have the opportunity to fill these voids and open up new businesses around what's really being kind of in demand by our community. We're also looking at building a convention center in downtown Terre Haute, which is going to require density of businesses around that. So that's just a really great runway for entrepreneurs to maybe open up their dream retail, maybe their dream restaurant or service business.
That's great. I love to hear about those exciting things happening. One of the programs that's spurring innovation in the tech industry is a monthly Tech Talk series, and you're hosting that there at Launch. Can you tell people what they can expect when they attend a Tech Talk and how that's helping to propel the entrepreneurial environment in Terre Haute and beyond?
Yeah, well, Terre Haute has a large concentration of higher ed, and so with those higher ed institutions comes a deep knowledge in some of these emerging technologies, and so we've partnered up with our higher ed community, and we are launching a Tech Talk series to introduce what these emerging technologies are, to get an understanding, just a really basic understanding of what they are and how are they applied. That allows entrepreneurs who are maybe looking to form a business around one of these technologies. It gives them a little bit of a baseline. It also gives existing companies an insight to what are these, how could we maybe bake them into our existing business? Is there a market we could open up by leveraging it? And also, as we all know, is there something disruptive coming down the pipe that we need to know about?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such an important way to build community and provide resources. You're also hosting the G-Beta Accelerator program. As a G-Beta alum myself here in the Indianapolis cohort, I know what an amazing program that is and what a valuable resource it is. How is the G-Beta program there in Terre Haute been able to help not only launch companies, but also connect them to investment?
Yeah, so the G-Beta program is a 7-week program that really fosters 5 companies that they have chosen to bring into the cohort. They really handhold them through a process, but along the way, they open up a lot of their lunch and learns, they open up some of their resources to our local entrepreneurs who maybe are not going through the process, and to just existing businesses. So they have the opportunity to sit in on some of that education, which has served really beneficial, and we've had great participation.
That's awesome, and I know you have a deep entrepreneurial spirit there. How do you feel that ties into your success with your role?
Anytime you have an opportunity to get exposed to resources, to education, to mentors and coaches, there is nothing bad about that.
That's incredible. Thanks so much for joining us, Shelley. Coming up next, we're celebrating Women's History Month, where everything from supporting women-owned businesses to raising a toast to the women paving the way in the alcohol industry. Yelp's Brittany Smith is here with this month's Trendiana Report. There she is in our Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Inside Indiana Business and a special all-women's edition of the show. I'm Heather Tallman, Program Director for Indiana Grown. Every month, the Trendiana segment takes you around Indiana to highlight some of the best the Hoosier State has to offer. When it comes to celebrating Women's History Month, the list has many options. From supporting women-owned businesses to the Madam Walker Legacy Center, which is a significant piece of our nation's history, to volunteering with a women-focused nonprofit. I'm pleased to welcome Yelp's Midwest Regional Director, Brittany Smith, who has an interesting list of places and organizations we should know about.
Yes.
Welcome, Brittany.
Great to have you, Heather. I'm excited about this and hopefully inspiring people with 5 different ways to celebrate Women's History Month throughout the state.
Fantastic. Well, tell me a little bit about the Madam Walker Legacy Center.
Yeah, as you kicked off, I mean, this center located on Indiana Avenue downtown has gone through renovations, and now is a great time to schedule your visit to see it as it's about to reopen. Beautiful historic landmark. It's actually a national landmark and really highlights the history of Madam Walker. And to build upon that, you can keep learning more about Madam Walker by going to the Indiana Historical Society, which has an exhibit right now, 1915, You Are There, Empowering Women exhibit with several artifacts from Madam Walker. It's truly a beautiful exhibit and walking distance from the Legacy Center.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, every day we should be supporting women-owned businesses, but this month, what are we looking at?
Yeah, this is we love to celebrate it every day. And one of the fun things that's new actually in the Yelp world is that you can search women-owned businesses through the app, and it'll actually pop up for near you which ones are women-owned.
Nice.
They've opted in. Hot Room Yoga is a great location, example of that. They have locations throughout the state. Now in Chicago, a great example of businesses that are owned by women and growing. Taqueria Loose Tacos in Union City, Indiana. There are businesses on main streets throughout the state that are really making a difference in the community. So now's a great time to support them as well.
I think so. And I think this year marks the 100th anniversary of our right to vote. Tell us a little bit about that celebration.
Yeah, thanks to Indiana Humanities, they've partnered up with a statewide organization of groups that are helping elevate this story from small towns from Monroe County to Crawfordsville. They're hosting events and programs and exhibits that you can see right in your backyard that celebrate this right to vote, and you can learn something new about the state.
Well, what about the people who would like to volunteer their time? What kind of opportunities are out there?
Yeah, a great example of this is Dress for Success. This is one of the dozens of nonprofits throughout the state that are helping women. Dress for Success in particular has locations in Fort Wayne, Michiana, as well as right here in downtown Indianapolis. And they provide resources for women who are looking for resume review prep, interview prep. If you're wanting to donate suits and items for preparing for interviews, this is a really great organization to get involved with. You can actually just go to the Yelp app and look up nonprofits near you, and hopefully you'll give back this season.
Nice. Well, let's end on an Indiana Grown note.
Yes.
I think we've got some members to talk about too.
Exactly. This is raising a glass to women in the alcohol industry, which is often male dominated. These are businesses throughout the state that are really paving the way. Bear Wallow, located in Nashville, Indiana, is such a fun spot. You can go there and do tastings. They have a variety of spirits. They do some fun ball jar shake-ups that I love as well. Another great example of that would be Scarlet Lane in McCordsville, Indiana. These are 2 great women pioneered businesses that you can support. Just the tip of the iceberg throughout the state.
Well, we can find more information using the Yelp app. Thank you, Brittany, so much for coming and celebrating this month. Coming up, 500,000 Hoosiers have faced and beat cancer, but many of them struggle with how to get back to normal. That's where the Coruna Precision Wellness Center comes in by helping survivors regain their quality of life. Details on how it works up ahead in the Business of Health.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Indiana Business for the special all-women's edition of our show. I'm Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta. There are 500,000 cancer survivors in Indiana, but after they've beat the disease or finished their treatments, many of them struggle with how to get back to living full, healthy lives. A nonprofit in Indianapolis called Coruna Precision Wellness Center is opening its doors to tackle this huge gap in care. Located at the Indianapolis Healthplex, it will help cancer survivors regain their quality of life by focusing on their physical and mental health and nutrition. Here to tell us more about her vision to support cancer survivors is the founder of Karuna, Dr. Jamie Renbarger. Thanks for coming to the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a great topic. You've spent your whole career at IU Health. You're currently Chief of Hematology Oncology at Riley Hospital. You've talked about, you've dreamed about this center for a long time. Why do you see a need for this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, the reality is the whole field of oncology is incredibly exciting, and I think we've come such a long way, particularly in pediatrics, but really across the board, even with adult malignancies, in curing a large percentage of people who develop cancers. And what I found was, after treatment, many people are sort of feel very isolated and on their own, and not really sure how to get back to the full, healthy lives that they want to live. You know, and so I think in recognizing that gap, searched for services we could refer patients to and other things, and really found that it was truly a gap in our community and across the country, and so have been dreaming about a way to fill that gap and to really truly be able to help people get back to life.
So you kind of exhausted the traditional route. So creating your own route. So this new nonprofit, you're going to have 3 areas of focus. Tell us about those areas of focus and what kind of services you're going to offer.
Sure. So Karuna is really, it is not medical care, and it's not intended to replace any care that individuals get with their physicians, but really to help in complementing that care. And focused on 3 areas that I've seen as a physician that people often struggle with. So focusing, 1, on optimizing physical function and fitness. So that can range from, you know, addressing general weakness and deconditioning to chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy and a whole variety of other things. The second area is nutritional wellness. There really is an increasing awareness around the use of food as a medicine, or really in being very conscious about optimizing nutrition. And so this will be nutritional counseling and meal planning specifically focused for the cancer and cancer survivor population. And the third area is what we're calling psychosocial, emotional, and cognitive wellness. So addressing everything from anxiety and depression, a post-traumatic stress disorder kind of phenomenon that many people experience, to chemo fog, sometimes is the word thrown around, or a foggy thinking, or difficulty with memory, and things like that also tend to impact the survivor population.
One thing that people may be thinking about is Karuna, which means to act out of compassion towards someone who, and that really has guided your vision for this. I also want to mention the assessment that you do up front. A very in-depth assessment is free, and this is open to any cancer survivor, regardless of where they received their cancer treatment. And the precision also in your name is really important. Talk about the importance of that word being in your name.
Yeah. So, you know, I think one thing that has driven me throughout my entire career is in treating people as individuals. You know, we recognize even with chemotherapy drugs and other medications that we use as healthcare providers, that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And with health and wellness, that same sort of approach is really critical to helping an individual person get back to their healthiest, most productive life. And so we do take a very individualized approach, as you mentioned, based on a comprehensive baseline assessment that evaluates those 3 important areas.
And that baseline assessment when they come in the door is free. Also, the exercise plans are free. Another really important piece of this is research. That's a really important component of this new center.
Absolutely. So we do include both a research component as well as a service component that allows us to capture information on how the interventions that we're providing or services that we're providing are benefiting individuals. And as a physician and scientist, I think that's really critical. We're kind of charting new territory here, and so really providing evidence for the medical community and as well as integrative health professionals around the world about what approaches that we're using that may be particularly effective or not, to help in continuing to refine and improve services that not only we provide, but that hopefully others will increasingly be providing around the country. The second point is I think it's important to provide evidence for what we're doing to ultimately provide data that insurance companies need so that over time more and more of these services may be covered by insurance providers.
Exactly. Well, congratulations on turning your dream into a reality, and keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kylie. I'm Alicia Johnson, Superintendent for Indianapolis Public Schools. A year-long program called Advancing Indy Women aims to help Indianapolis women reach their potential in the workforce. A cohort of 60 people have completed workshops covering personal branding, identifying mentors, and career development planning. The program has experienced so much success in its first year, leaders are looking for funding for a second year. In our Eye on Education, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Kim Saxton, a clinical professor of marketing at IU Kelley School of Business at IUPUI, to share more on the program. Welcome, Dr. Saxton.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So first, tell me a little bit about Advancing Indy Women. How did this idea come about and why?
Well, you can imagine at the Kelley School of Business that we have been training women as business professionals for years. And about 5 years ago, we started an effort more specifically to look at how to help women advance at a faster rate. And my partner, Charlotte Westerhouse Renfro, and I started doing presentations on negotiation and personal branding and grit and executive presence. And we just couldn't help but feel like the needle was stuck.
Yeah.
So we wanted to look at middle manager women or middle level women and think, how can we help them stop hitting the glass ceiling? And we had both been invited to speak at Linking Indy Women, and we knew their directors, Sarah Lacey and Allie Bretnacker, and we thought, this is the perfect group of women to work with. They're already committed to advancing their careers. They're meeting monthly to talk about it. And so we started this partnership with them, and we surveyed their population, their community, to see what kinds of things they thought they needed.
Sure.
And then we invited them to apply, and we had 130 applications for what was originally 40 slots, and we made it 62 slots.
Wow. So that was an amazing response, obviously showing lots of women being interested. So tell me, what successes are they experiencing? How has the program gone?
Well, so far we're pretty excited. We just did a mid-point survey, and what we discovered is that more than 50% of the women had found a new mentor.
Awesome.
25% of the women had gotten a promotion.
Wow, that's incredible.
Incredible. And some people had even decided to become self-employed, which is something we didn't expect, but we think because they looked at what they were doing and thought about where they wanted to go next, they decided to grab the small business by the horns.
Wow. So I know you've done some surveys and conducted your research through the survey to understand where those women are and what supports they need. What has your research found?
We were stunned to discover that this group, which is younger and highly educated and were already actively working on their careers, only 25% had a personal brand statement. Well, a personal brand statement is about who you think you are and how you're going to communicate that to the world. So it's the first step really to being advanced. And only 20% had a written career development plan, again, specifying where they thought they wanted to go. Only 10% had a sponsor. So without a sponsor, you don't get pulled through.
Yeah.
But the most amazing thing we discovered is that they had a really high fear of failure. So we thought we need some workshops to fix these kinds of things. And so that's why that research led directly to the 5 workshops. And the last one is about leading with confidence.
Great. Well, I know a little bit about getting to learn in that area for sure. So you've gotten 1 year down and under your belt. Tell us what you're looking to do in the second year to continue those development efforts for the women in this program.
Well, we were very lucky that IUPUI, through the BANTS Community Scholar Program, gave us a seed grant for this first year. And so we'd like to continue the program, but we need the funding to continue the program. and invite a larger cohort next year. And we have plenty of people who are already raising their hands.
I can imagine.
But the other thing we discovered is that the women who are in this year want to continue, which we hadn't anticipated. So we're actually looking at new programming options to keep them engaged and continuing to excel.
Great. And so if someone's interested in being supportive, how might they do that?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me at the Kelley School of Business, mksaxton@iu.edu, and we'd be glad to talk about working with a corporation, a nonprofit, a foundation. We're going to continue the partnership with Linking Indy Women, so it'll continue being Advancing Indy Women, but we'd like to broaden it as well.
That's amazing. Well, Dr. Kim Saxton with the IU School of Business, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being here, and thank you for the incredible work you're doing to develop women and support them in our community.
Thank you.
Coming up next, Madam C.J. Walker was an Indiana businesswoman way before her time. We go one-on-one with Alilia Bundles, who shares more about her great-great-grandmother, Madam C.J. Walker, an Indianapolis entrepreneur who made a huge mark in the business world more than 100 years ago. More on her life and how Indianapolis is preserving her legacy.
In just a few days, the Netflix biopic Self-Made premieres, and it features the legacy and career Madam C.J. Walker made starting her hair care empire in Indianapolis more than a century ago. Now her legacy of entrepreneurship and business will live on in the newly renovated Madam Walker Legacy Center, thanks to a partnership with Indiana University and IUPUI. It's been an iconic building for nearly a century in downtown Indianapolis. Just off Indiana Avenue, the Walker Theater is a monument to one of the city's and arguably the country's most successful female innovators of the 20th century. I sat down with Madam Walker's great-great-granddaughter, Alilia Bundles, to discuss Madam Walker's life and lasting impact on Indianapolis.
Madam Walker was really about providing economic opportunity, economic independence for women.
But first she found economic independence for herself. Walker famously said, "I got my start by giving myself a start." And that she did, going from an uneducated laundress living in Louisiana to becoming the first self-made female millionaire in America by creating a hair care line for Black women that ultimately brought her business to Indianapolis. So why did Madam Walker decide to invest in the Circle City over a century ago?
She was really looking for a city that had a thriving Black business community, and that was a place where she could ship her goods because she had primarily a mail order business. And when she visited Indianapolis, she met people like George Knox, who was the publisher of the Indianapolis Freeman, a Black newspaper. That was a nationally distributed newspaper. There was a chapter of the National Negro Business League here. But she also saw that it was a place where trains were coming through. Every day, hundreds of trains coming through. The highway system was just being built. It was a place that manufactured cars. So Madam Walker could see that this was a place that was a good place to do business, and that is why she settled here.
And it would prove to be a wise decision. At the time of Walker's death in 1919, her company was bringing in what today would equate to more than $3 million, while also providing life-changing employment for nearly 40,000 workers.
She saw herself in the women who were her sales agents, and she saw they needed education and they needed economic independence. She helped to create generational wealth for African American families because they could educate their children and buy homes and invest in real estate.
Walker's inspiring story is now the subject of the upcoming Netflix series Self-Made, starring Octavia Spencer.
It's really wonderful that this Netflix series inspired by my book. So a Netflix series, like any Hollywood production, veers a bit from the actual story, but it does introduce a lot of people to a historical figure who they need to know about and who I think will inspire them. And then I'm hoping they will come visit Indianapolis, come to the Madam Walker Legacy Center, go to the Indiana Historical Society.
So what would Madam C.J. Walker think of women in business today?
She would be happy to see that there's so many women CEOs, more women millionaires than we can count. But I think she'd be frustrated that such a small percentage of venture capital goes to women. So she would say we have really come a long way. There's some really great milestones to look at, but we really still have a long way to go so that women are getting the same amount of investment and getting the same amount of support for their businesses.
The grand opening of the Madam Walker Legacy Center is set to open in early June. And again, the Netflix biopic Self-Made that stars Octavia Spencer as Madam C.J. Walker and executive producer LeBron James will premiere on March 20th. Well, coming up, an all-female insiders panel is getting warmed up to sound off on the challenge Indiana women-owned startups have in finding funding. Guest host Kristen Hooper will lead the ladies in an important discussion. There they are in our social media lounge. We'll be right back.
You're watching a special all-women's edition of Inside Indiana Business. I'm guest host Kristen Cooper, CEO and founder of the Startup Ladies. Each week, a group of insiders offers perspective on the week's top stories. This week, we're sounding off on important issues women face in the workplace, especially when it comes to entrepreneurs securing funding. Our insiders this week, former CFO for Interactive Intelligence, Ashley Vukovitz, SnapShift co-founder and COO Stephanie Corliss, and co-founder of Singleton Companies, Judy Singleton. Stephanie, we're going to get started with you. Tell us a little bit about what your fundraising experience has been like for SnapShift.
Challenging, absolutely. SnapShift, we were building something new.
Sure.
We started in the Midwest, which has its own limitations and barriers. I'm a woman founder. It wasn't really until we got into the Generator program, a Midwest program now nationally known, that we started getting the traction and excitement that we needed from both the coasts and here back home in Indiana.
Okay, so funding is a little bit tough, especially for first-time founders.
It absolutely is.
So Judy, you have invested in a few Indiana startups. Why have you decided to invest in female-founded companies?
I have a history of being involved in investing my time in efforts to promote women in business and in politics. And when I started investing in startups, I was taught you should try to set your strategy about what kind of businesses you want to invest in. And the first thing that came to my mind is, of course, I would like to invest in women-led startups.
That's awesome.
It's, I had reasons. I know women have outperformed men in many ways.
Right.
And my first startup in Indiana, it was with Codalicious, who you know, and it's been a wonderful experience.
Christine McDonald is smart and an incredible CEO.
She's terrific.
She is.
She's so terrific.
Yeah. We need more women investing in other women. We need more men investing in female-founded companies. Ashley, you have helped enterprise-level companies, startups raise money. Walk us through the fundraising process, and why do more people need to be investing in female founders?
So the investment process, or the funding process, raising capital, there's many different stages of it for startups. But in the beginning, it's usually like a friends and family round where it's people that know the founder, and that's typically where that starts. Then you go to a seed round where you might bring some outside investors in. You may get some funds involved, may not. Then you start into your Series A, Series B. I think it's important that we have not only women investing in women, but also men investing in women. I think women-led companies have a lot of potential and may not have the decks and may not have a lot of the experience, particularly if you're a first-time CEO of a startup. But I think it's important to revisit and look at the CEO, the founder, look at the product, look at the market, and just look at all those things and give women a fair shake.
Right. The founder, the market, the potential ROI, so important when making those decisions. Judy, tell us a little bit about what you want to see when a founder approaches you.
Well, first I would look at her leadership ability, and you can generally tell that within the first 5 or 10 minutes of visiting with somebody. And then I would look at the strength of her idea, because it has to make sense to me. This world is so rough and tumble, and ideas are coming up that I would have never understood are possible.
Sure.
And then I would look at her track record of success, and I also would see if she's the kind of woman who supports other women.
Oh, I love that.
I feel like I want to be in that same club.
That's awesome.
And I want to get a realistic view of what is possible to make, and I am in this to make money, not just to do a good deed for women who are trying to start a new business.
Right.
So I have to see a reasonable plan. If she's telling me I'm going to get 10 times my money back, in 2 years, I know that's a little funny. So
Right, yeah. But more than likely, women founders, we know better than
Would
that.
never
We're going to
do that.
present
No.
smart to give you the deal you need to invest in. So, Stephanie, you have been raising money for a little while. Tell us what the differences are between pitching an individual investor like Judy versus pitching to a fund.
There are a lot of similarities, there are differences. The biggest similarity is the team. With an angel, you're going to build that relationship, that rapport with a little bit more. You get to know them almost, I don't want to say a personal level, but you do.
Sure. You build trust.
It's basically courting.
Right.
You court each other,
right.
honestly. You also want to make sure that the angel's a good fit for you.
Right.
They want to trust you. That's what they are going to invest in.
Yeah.
They also want to, make sure that their investment is safe. They're a little less risk averse, they are more risk averse than your typical VC fund or institutional money. Whereas the VC, they want to know strictly about the team,
sure,
the market size, and can you execute.
Right.
They don't even care about the product as much.
Yeah.
And you might only have a couple conversations with them. They don't really get to know you. They really want to see your track record, either as being a founder before, or where you went to school, or what projects and where you've worked before.
Right.
That's how they validate the team.
Okay.
So
pre-seed funding is tough to raise. Ashley, you have helped people at different stages secure that kind of funding. Talk to us about what pre-seed funding is and why it's so important to startups.
Yeah, well, it's very important because it's really the money you're going to use to get your product or service off the ground. And depending on what that is, my background is in tech, so I invest in more in tech startups. There can be substantial funds that a company needs to get a tech product off the ground, tech product or tech service. So those funds, that friends and family pre-seed funds, are very important because those are the funds you're going to use to hire employees, to, if you're manufacturing, to create to create different products, prototypes. So it's just really important. And you really need to tap into your network of friends and family. You can't feel bad about asking. When you're investing, when you're an investor and you're investing in these startups, what I do, and I'm sure what Judy does, we set aside some funds for high risk investments, and that's what's gonna go towards these startups. And you have to know that you might not get that money back. So when you're talking to your friends and family, you just kind of have to be in that mindset, as well as the other thing I learned was we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that an individual is going to invest. There's sometimes it could be $5,000. A lot of times it's $25,000. So you can, you can get more people to put out those kind of funds if they know that you're not looking for hundreds of thousands or $1 million. So
Right.
it's really important to get those funds up front, get the development done, get a product or service, maybe even get a few customers, and then you can start talking more to some of the funds or institutional investors.
Right. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll be right back after this. Stay with us.
Well, that's all the time we have this week. We want to give a special thanks to all of our great guest hosts this week and our guests for joining us on this special all-women's edition of our show. And in honor of Women's History Month and International Women's Day, we also want to salute the phenomenal mothers, daughters, sisters, entrepreneurs, innovators, and executives who helped to make Indiana great. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.